What are we gonna do, Jerry?
Stay calm, stay calm, stay the speed limit.
Hey, man, that coming around me.
Thank God.
Fans of Moonshiners have spent years assuming they know Mike Cockrell's whole story, but recent developments are proving that assumption wrong. As Discovery's main distilling show continues with new seasons, people are asking again about his business troubles, his run-ins with the law, and a rumor that just won't go away, all over social media. Is Moonshiner Mike still standing after everything the show has put him through? And why do so many fans still believe he ended up behind bars?
We've got so much liquor stashed up in our stash house. We're spinning our wheels around here trying to find a handful of customers to buy anything. So we're going to meet a bootlegger to see if he wants to do a little bit of bootlegging for us and get this liquor sold.
Join us as we break down what really happened to Mike Cockrell, piece by piece, the night that started the arrest rumors. If there is one moment that fans still bring up more than any other, it is the Season 10 finale. Mike and fellow Shiner Jerry were hauling a shipment toward Kentucky when a phone call changed everything. Another moonshiner warned them that word had gotten out about a compromised stash house, one that was holding around 150 gallons of product, enough to end their operation completely if the wrong people found it first. For a business that survives entirely on secrecy, a compromised location is close to a nightmare. Every minute mattered. Every decision could mean the difference between walking away clean or losing everything, including their freedom. Viewers watched the tension play out in real time, and it left a lasting impression that stuck with the fan base long after the episode aired. Fans spent weeks replaying that finale, picking apart every phone call and twitchy look like amateur detectives. That hyperfixation is usually where wild rumors start. One tense moment turns into a crazy theory. The theory turns into a massive rumor, and suddenly everyone acts like it's gospel truth. That episode is almost certainly why rumors about Mike being arrested have followed him online for years. Fans connected the dots themselves and assumed the worst, and the story took on a life of its own across forums and social media. Here is the truth people deserve to hear clearly. Mike Cockrell has never actually been arrested over his moonshining work. The scare was real, and it was terrifying in the moment, but the consequences fans imagined online were not. Still, the damage from a rumor like that does not just disappear once the facts come out. Mike has spent years correcting the record, watching the same claim resurface every time a new season airs or a new clip goes viral. It says something about how reality television blurs the line between performance and real life. It is completely interesting how a tense phone call on a Kentucky back road turned into years of arrest rumors. It turns out some people love turning 20 seconds of awkward acting into an entire conspiracy theory, mostly because reality is usually way too boring. The rumors may have made headlines, but they only tell a tiny part of Mike's story. So who was Michael Dean Todd Cockrell before he became Moonshiner Mike? The kid who grew into Moonshiner Mike, Michael Dean Todd Cockrell, definitely was not born planning to be on TV. He grew up in Mies, Mississippi, a tiny town where everyone knows everyone. His parents, Stanley and Linda, raised him alongside a house full of brothers and sisters. It was a simple life centered around family and hard work. Back then, nobody in that small town expected a local kid to end up on national television. Long before anyone called him Moonshiner Mike, he was just a kid learning basic small-town values before a camera crew decided illegal liquor made for great entertainment. Everything changed when Mike moved to Sevierville, Tennessee. That move introduced him to the world of legal moonshine through the Tennessee Shine Company, a fully licensed business with locations in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and Wares Valley. This was a far cry from the secretive moonshining stories people had heard for generations. Instead of hiding from the law, the business welcomed tourists through its doors. Mike even helped develop a moonshine history museum, giving visitors a chance to learn about the industry's past while sampling legal products. It was a clear sign of how much the moonshine world had changed. Losing his father in 2014 hit Mike hard, and it happened right around the time his whole life was about to change into a completely different gear. He was becoming a husband, a business partner, and soon a television personality, all while carrying grief that most fans never saw on screen. Grief like that does not just disappear because a camera crew shows up. It sits underneath everything, shaping decisions long after everyone goes home. Reportedly, that same year marked the start of Mike's engagement to Jenna Hurst. Losing a father while promising to spend forever with someone else is a brutal combo. Life rarely pauses to let anyone process tragedy, and most people just have to push through the worst days while keeping up appearances. Cameras only ever captured the confident guy selling legal liquor in the Smoky Mountains. The grieving son trying to keep things together stayed behind the scenes. Moving from Mies, Mississippi, to the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee isn't just packing up boxes. It's wiping the slate clean and starting over. Most reality TV shows love showing off illegal stills and high-speed police chases. They never bother showing how a small-town kid actually built the operation that made all that drama happen. But that quiet, underground life was about to crash headfirst into the spotlight, making Mike famous for things no one saw coming. Honestly, reality TV loves pretending people just magically spawn into drama without ever working for it. Everything Mike had done up to that point had prepared him for one moment. Could a rookie with no television experience earn the respect of seasoned moonshiners and millions of viewers? The rookie nobody expected to last. When Mike Cockrell joined the cast of Moonshiners in Season 6, almost nobody outside his hometown had heard his name. The show was already a hit, built around seasoned operators who had been dodging law enforcement for years. Mike was the new guy, and new guys rarely last long enough to matter on a show built around reputation and trust earned the hard way. His entry point came through fellow moonshiner Mark, who needed help expanding into fresh territory after a wave of arrests cleared out competitors across the state line. Mike knew the land, he knew the risks, and he knew how to keep an operation quiet. So he said yes, and a partnership was born that would shape the next several years of his life on the show. The gamble paid off fast. By the end of that first stretch together, Mike and Mark had produced over 1,000 gallons of moonshine, blowing past their own target and proving that the rookie could hang with the veterans. Fans started noticing him. Producers started featuring him more. For a guy who had spent years working the legal side of the business, stepping into the riskier, camera-heavy world of illegal production was a massive leap. And it paid off almost immediately in a way few newcomers ever manage. Making more moonshine just meant more risk and more eyes watching the operation. Mike pulled his weight early on. By Season 7, Mark partnered up with him again after their first run made serious money. The real problem was the competition. Nobody knew if the rival shiners busted in earlier raids were sitting in prison or walking the streets looking for revenge. Every single delivery felt like driving around with a target painted on the bumper. Nothing screams reality TV gold quite like the constant threat of getting shot by freshly released felons over cheap corn whiskey. That kind of pressure changes a person fast. Mike went from an outsider trying to prove himself to someone who had real weight to protect, real product moving, and real money on the line. What he had not yet learned was how quickly one bad call could undo everything he had built in such a short amount of time. The mistake that blew up an alliance. Here is where the story takes a sharp turn. As Mike's operation grew, tensions with rival shiners grew right alongside it. When Mike believed a fellow moonshiner named Richard had crossed a line by selling a product to one of his own longtime buyers, he treated it as a serious violation of the Moonshiners' code that holds this whole secretive world together, a code that matters more than any written contract ever could. Feeling disrespected, Mike allegedly moved to retaliate by targeting a rival still. It should have sent a clear message. Instead, it became one of the most costly mistakes of his time on the show. The still he hit did not belong to the person he was aiming for. It belonged to fellow cast members Mark and Digger, and the fallout was brutal for everyone involved. The damage left Mike on the hook for roughly $7,500, a debt that strained his finances and his relationships at the same time. Trust is everything in a world built on secrecy, and Mike had just broken it in the worst possible way. Fellow shiners who once had his back suddenly had questions about his judgment, and word travels fast in a community this tightly connected. Emotionally, this was the moment Mike's reputation changed from promising newcomer to a man who had to rebuild trust from scratch. He kept working. He kept distilling. But the bruised alliances from that single decision lingered for years, secretly shaping how other moonshiners treated him going forward. Some relationships never fully recovered. What makes this chapter so revealing is how ordinary the trigger was. This was not some elaborate betrayal. It was a dispute over a buyer, the kind of disagreement that happens constantly in any competitive trade. The difference is that in this world, disputes cannot be settled with lawyers or contracts, and this particular debt could have ended things right there. Instead, it set the stage for an even bigger test, one that would hit far beyond Mike's own operation and put his entire livelihood at risk. Reinventing the business during hard times. Not long after the alliance fell apart, Mike's professional life took another turn. He deepened his partnership with fellow distiller Jerry Benson, and together they pivoted toward producing clear, flavorless spirits designed to match changing customer demand. It was a smart move on paper, but it came at one of the worst possible times to make it. The pandemic hit the moonshine trade harder than almost anyone expected. Supply chains tightened, travel became complicated, and Mike and Jerry were forced to abandon parts of their Tennessee operation entirely. They regrouped in North Carolina, starting over in unfamiliar territory while trying to keep alive a business that depended entirely on trust, secrecy, and the demand from people who suddenly had far bigger things to worry about. It would have been easy to walk away. Plenty of moonshiners have done exactly that when the pressure got too heavy. But Mike and Jerry held on, betting that people would eventually come back around to celebrating again once the world reopened. By spring of 2021, that bet had paid off. Demand returned, operations stabilized, and the partnership that started with a pivot born out of necessity became one of the more resilient stories on the entire show. That resilience mattered because Mike was not just fighting to keep a business running. He was fighting to protect a life he had built from nothing, one that included a family who depended on him staying both free and financially afloat. Looking back, the pandemic years might be the most underrated part of Mike's entire run on the show. No crazy raids happened. No viral rumors blew up. No headlines got grabbed. It was just a slow, miserable grind to keep a small business alive while the whole industry crashed down around him. Staying afloat doesn't make for flashy TV, but staying alive is usually the hardest part of any story to pull off. Turns out, surviving a global shutdown by making bootleg alcohol doesn't get a Hollywood soundtrack, just a massive headache and an endless pile of bills. And just as that chapter started settling down, fans noticed something completely different happening to Mike, something that had nothing to do with moonshine at all. The transformation. By early 2024, longtime viewers of Moonshiners started noticing something dramatic. Mike looked different, cleaner shaven, noticeably slimmer, and, according to fans on Reddit, roughly 30 pounds lighter than in previous seasons. The internet did what the internet always does with a change like that. Speculation exploded almost overnight, and theories started spreading faster than anyone could confirm them. Some assumed Mike had jumped on the Ozempic trend that swept through reality television around the same time. Others figured it had to be some kind of medical issue nobody wanted to discuss publicly. Neither rumor turned out to be true. A look at Mike's social media tells a much simpler story. Instead of relying on weight loss drugs or miracle treatments, he focused on healthy eating and consistency. His breakfast posts regularly featured egg white omelets, lean meat, and deer sausage instead of fast food. There was no magic formula behind his transformation. It came down to making better food choices and sticking with them day after day. It may not be the most exciting answer, but it is often the one that delivers the best results. Just like he rebuilt trust with the other Moonshiners over time, he transformed his health through patience, discipline, and consistency. For a man whose public image had been shaped by scandal rumors and near misses with the law, this was a rare moment where the story behind the headlines was actually wholesome. Mike had simply decided to take better care of himself, and he let the results speak for themselves instead of explaining every step to a curious internet demanding answers. There is a certain irony in it too. A man who spent years being scrutinized for what he might be hiding from law enforcement suddenly found himself being scrutinized for what he might be hiding in a syringe. Neither assumption gave him much credit for simply making better choices on his own terms, one plate of egg whites at a time. That same approach was also playing out in a much more personal part of his life, one fans knew far less about: the wedding and what comes next. Behind every version of Mike Cockrell that fans saw on television, there was a much longer love story playing out off-camera. Mike and Jenna Hurst got engaged all the way back in July of 2014, the same painful year he lost his father. They stayed engaged for 7 long years before finally marrying on September 11, 2021, in a ceremony built around denim overalls, a wide-brimmed hat, and a wedding dress with soft floral lace that fit the rustic country setting perfectly. The blended family includes 5 kids total, 1 boy and 4 girls, coming from Mike's past and present relationships. All of them show up on social media pretty often. One daughter even goes on moonshine runs with him, basically taking up the family business despite all the chaos everyone watched him deal with over the years. Running a moonshine operation involves non-stop risk and secrecy, but family somehow stayed the one stable thing in his life the whole time. Nothing builds strong family bonding quite like taking a kid into the woods at 3 in the morning to run a bootleg liquor operation. Professionally, Mike's story kept evolving too. In one of the more surprising turns for longtime viewers, Mike eventually reached out to end his long-standing feud with Mark, the very partner whose alliance had once produced 1,000 gallons before falling apart over a costly mistake. The two sat down, cleared the air, and closed a chapter that had quietly defined years of tension on the show, proving that even the messiest fallouts can eventually find resolution. That single decision to pick up the phone and call a truce says more about Mike's growth than almost anything else in this story. The rookie who once retaliated first and thought later had become a man willing to sit across from an old rival and simply talk things out. It is a small moment in the grand scope of a long-running series, But for anyone who has followed Mike's entire arc, it lands as one of the most meaningful. So, after everything, what really happened to Mike Cockrell? He was never arrested, disappeared, and he never quietly faded out of the show the way so many online posts have claimed. He rebuilt trust after a costly mistake, survived a pandemic that crushed his industry, transformed his health on his own terms, and married the woman who stood by him through all of it. As recent seasons continue to prove, Mike is still very much part of the Moonshiners' story, and by every indication, that story is far from finished. Every rumor that ever circulated about Mike turned out to have a far less dramatic explanation than the internet wanted. No handcuffs, no scandal that ended his career. Just a man who made a costly mistake early on, learned from it, and kept showing up season after season while quietly building the life he actually wanted off camera. Sometimes the real story is less about a shocking twist and more about someone simply refusing to quit. 1 gallon, 1 season, and 1 hard lesson at a time. So after everything Mike Cockrell has been through, does he deserve his reputation as one of the show's most resilient cast members? What part of his story surprised viewers the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.